Okay, welcome back to the Colorado War Correspondent YouTube page or podcast, depending on what media you are watching or listening to us with. Today I'm going to be reading the first-hand account of Bert Brandt, who was a war correspondent in North Africa, Italy, Sicily, Normandy, France, Netherlands, Germany, all the way through the war. This article was actually published in Popular Mechanics in May of 1945 and was written by Bert Brandt himself. It's called I Cover the Battlefront. Covering World War II with a camera is certainly much different from photographing the biggest home front stories, fires, floods, and wrecks included. To begin with, the effective range of a telephoto lens is only about 500 yards, while it seems as if any kind of German machine gun or rifle can shoot accurately at least 2,000 yards. If you're too far away when you snap a battle picture, the images are so small they can't be sufficiently enlarged for newspaper use. And if you're too close, you're more worried about saving your own neck than you are about getting a few pictures. So you're on the move a good deal, trying to be at the right place at the right time. After all, you can't tell them to fight the battle over just because he didn't happen to be there when it was going on. I was with the infantry when it went into Cassino, Anzio, Normandy, St. Lo, Paris, and Aachen, and I know you have to stick right with the doughboys or you don't get any good pictures. Yes, and you have to have a lot of luck, too, to get anything exceptional. I remember when we were in the Venafro Ridge in Italy, I wanted to get a series of pictures showing our shells falling on a little German-held town of Conakasala. 3 rangers with whom I was living at the time volunteered to take me to a place where I would have a good view of the barrage. They led me about half a mile along a ravine, then up through some bushes onto a rocky hill that overlooked Conakasala, a swell spot to shoot pictures. I immediately got out my 12-inch telephoto lens and went to work. But the view of the town was so good, I became suspicious and questioned one of my companions. Blandly, he told me we were behind the German lines. I gulped and peered around cautiously. From foxholes 60 yards away on the same hill came the unmistakable sound of German voices. "Why don't they shoot us?" I asked, shivering quietly. "Oh, sometimes they do, and sometimes they don't," came the casual reply. Finally, I settled down, and the rangers stayed with me on that hill for almost 2 hours while I shot a whole series showing the destruction of the town by our artillery. Even in the middle of a war, a news photographer has to worry about getting his hot negatives back to the processing point while they are still news. He also likes to beat the official army cameraman. Probably the greatest competition of that kind occurred during the invasion of Normandy, when each of more than 100 military and civilian photographers was determined to get his pictures back to London first. The infantry outfit I was assigned to had the job of storming the little stretch of beach that was to have more casualties than any other that day. Before our LCT had even touched the shore, I began shooting, for there were picture possibilities everywhere. I waded ashore with the 72 pounds of equipment hanging on me. This included a speed graphic with 2 lenses and a month's supply of film, 50 flash bulbs, color film, shipping envelopes, a Rolleiflex with 30 rolls of film and assorted filters, 2 canteens of water, and 6 chocolate bars. For prosecution, I'd shoved my Rolleiflex and a supply of film inside a slit inner tube, put a repair patch over the hole, and inflated the tube to wear as a combination camera case and life preserver. After dodging up and down the shell-riddled beach a while, making pictures as fast as I could exchange film, I became anxious to get the stuff back to London for developing and transmitting. As soon as I could, I hitched a ride on a Higgins boat that was going out to a destroyer. Aboard ship, the skipper, who naturally had more important things to worry about, said he couldn't guarantee that he could get my films back to London, but I managed to thumb a ride on a small craft full of wounded en route to a troop ship, and I got them to take me across the channel and put me ashore at Weymouth, England. There, a transportation officer lent me his jeep, and a driver and I raced to London. Arriving there, early on D-Day +1, I found that my stuff was the first to get back, and the censor labeled 2 of my pictures number 1 and number 2. Thanks to radio, these pictures were published in papers all over the United States less than 4 hours later. Although none of the other cameramen, military or civilian, had beaten me, it wasn't really a world scoop. because the non-competitive wartime pool agreement makes all war pictures available to everyone. Under ordinary combat conditions, the Army's Public Relations Office takes care of shipping film back. In Belgium, for example, my captions and negatives are delivered to press headquarters where they are addressed, put into a canvas bag, and carried by jeep to a Piper Cub field, then flown to the airport at Brussels. From there, they go in a larger plane directly to London, where the news picture agencies have offices. After developing and censoring the negatives, are flown by bomber to the United States. Pictures of exceptional spot news value are transmitted to North America via radio telephoto. I usually carry about 15 pounds of photographic equipment. I keep the trusty Rolleiflex around my neck, the speed graphic in my hand, and 6 film packs and my big 12-inch telephoto lens in a chamois inside my shirt, and a roll film and K-ration in my pocket. This is not too heavy, but it certainly gets in your way when you dive into a foxhole or try to dig one with your nose during a strafing or bombing. A combat photographer doesn't have much time to fool around with trick shots. However, I did manage to capture what is reported to be the first battle scene ever made by moonlight. When the Germans were holding out in the Lagone, Italy, a British newsreel man and I went to the top of a hill, overlooking the little moonlit town to try to photograph the shells bursting in the night. I put my camera on a rock and made a 15-minute time exposure at f5.6, which resulted in a most unusual effect. The moonlight brought out the buildings and the shells made peculiar glowing effect in the dark. We stayed there until dawn. Then, when our infantry attacked, I made pictures of the sunlight glinting on the bayonets as the troops swept past. Soon afterward, the Germans spotted us and sent a barrage of 88s our way. It killed 14 communications men dug in around us. A month before the Allies took Cassino, I decided to try for the first aerial pictures of the town. One of the Army's intrepid flying sergeants took me over the town at a low altitude in a Piper Cub, and I grabbed 12 shots through the open door of the cabin, while a German rifleman drilled a couple of neat round holes in one wing. As we flew back, I was already congratulating myself on a beat, but when the films were developed, I got a shock. Shooting on the back shutter, I had pulled the prize boner of forgetting to open the Compur shutter in front of the camera. All 12 plates were blank. At Anzio, my Rolleiflex was a casualty, and I had no one but myself to blame. After landing with the first wave at 2 a.m., I stayed near the beach till after dawn to photograph the reinforcements and supplies coming in. German planes kept strafing until I got under our skin. Once, to escape a low-flying Messerschmitt, I dived under a bulldozer, but one of Jerry's 50 caliber shells went through the engine, dousing me with oil. It made me so mad I jumped up and pitched my valuable rollie in the direction of the vanishing plane. Of course, I didn't bring it down, and I completely ruined the camera. In GI slang, Anzio was sticky business. The Germans settled high in the surrounding hills, lobbed over shells at us on our narrow beachhead whenever they felt like it. The war was right on top of us every minute of the day and night. I could even sit in the bedroom window of the villa where I stayed and shoot pictures of the Jerry dive bombers trying to hit the ships a half-mile out in the harbor. I got one shot that way, which allowed me a stick of 4 bombs falling all around some Liberty ships. When I left the beachhead sometime later on an LST, a strafer's bullet hit the deck nearby, and a piece of it ripped through the back of my camera, but luckily it did no damage to me. There have been a number of close calls, each of which scared the devil out of me. Near San Vittore, Italy, I was with attacking infantry when we ran into a Nazi barrage. I dived into the nearest trench, landing on top of 2 Jerrys. They were apparently even more frightened than I, for they held their hands above their heads and cried, "Kamerad!" I like to think I captured them. At Aachen, I was with 10 doughboys who were moving an anti-tank gun into position on one of the bitterly contested streets. The Nazis spotted our movement and immediately showered us all with mortars. As I ducked for the protection of a doorway, one of the mortars hit the street not 5 feet away, and I'm glad to say it was a dud. But some of the others were real, and they got 7 of the men in our group. Editors, like unusual human interest pictures, which vary the familiar pattern of routine war photography. You're always sure a humorous picture will get a good ride in the papers. For example, one of my most widely published pictures shows a bearded little gnome of a Trappist monk and a jeep driver staring curiously at each other in a 700-year-old Belgian monastery, never before photographed. Another is a gag shot of 3 GIs standing at an exaggerated attention behind an infantryman and an army nurse who are sitting in the throne room of the royal palace of Caserta near Naples. It was good for a laugh. Sometimes people get the impression that cameramen are taking more risks than anyone else and therefore are heroes. The real heroes are the slogging infantrymen who take risks day in and day out as a matter of course and keeping right on going. What really makes my job worthwhile is to see a gaunt, unshaved GI proudly dig a clipping from his pocket and say, "Remember when you took this picture of me? Mom cut it out of the hometown paper. She thought it came out pretty good." All right, well, thanks for listening. That is the end of the article written by Bert Brandt. It really gives a great first-person account of, a war correspondent who is on the front lines for several years straight. Thanks for listening. Please like, subscribe, and share.